Welcome to this session on entrepreneurial thought and action. The goal of this session is to learn the way entrepreneurs think, the way entrepreneurs make decisions, and then to apply this during the subject and also in startup projects and any other project that the students are going to take. So we're going to have an overview on different theories about entrepreneurship, and then we will specifically focus on how entrepreneurs think and how entrepreneurs behave. But first, I would like to kick off this session with two exploratory questions. So the first one is, who is an entrepreneur? And the second is whether entrepreneurship can be taught, and consequently, whether entrepreneurship can be learned. So there are very different theories about this. So there are people saying that entrepreneurs are business owners. There are others saying that entrepreneurs are only the one creating something innovative. So the act of creating a new venture with a specific content of innovation in it. And at the same time, there are theories according to which entrepreneurship cannot be learned. So people are born as entrepreneurs. And on the other side, there are theories according to which actually we can teach entrepreneurship. We can teach the main factors, the main dimensions of entrepreneurship. So, how can we define entrepreneurship? How can we define the nature of entrepreneurship? So essentially, we need to look at the external market and whether in the market there is an opportunity and how this opportunity will match with an enterprising individual or an entrepreneur. And these opportunities can come out of a new market, or the new opportunity can come out from a new product in an existing market. Or in some circumstances, we have even opportunities stemming from a new market and a new product. So in that case, we have a business innovation paired with technology innovation. Entrepreneurship is nothing new. There have been entrepreneurs for the past thousands of years, but the science behind entrepreneurship, this is relatively new. And we have a lot of different theories on how entrepreneurship can be understood. So the very early theory about entrepreneurship would focus on the characteristics of entrepreneurs. And we are going to see this in a moment. So this early theory of entrepreneurship will say that a successful entrepreneur, to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to have a passion for your business. You need to have this vision of your product and your customer. Think of Jeff Bezos, for example. He always says that the customer comes first. He is obsessed with customer orientation. In the same early theories will stress that entrepreneurs are resilient, that entrepreneurs have resilience, have tenacity. And by having this resilience, they are able to overcome failure. And finally, these early theories will stress that entrepreneurs are succeeding despite failure. And a part of these theories will list down the personality traits of successful entrepreneurs. So we will look at the personality of entrepreneurs, and they will try to identify, to determine some of the traits of successful entrepreneurs. So these traits could be the disciplines of entrepreneurs, the frugality, the flexibility, the communication skills, the confidence, the motivation, the ability to find always positive things in the entrepreneurial journey. And the point is, when we observe entrepreneurs, do we really see all these characteristics? Okay, if we take some stereotypical entrepreneurs, if we take Elon Musk, for example, so yeah, probably we see all these characteristics. We see that he's very disciplined, that he is very frugal, he's now living in a prefabricated house that costs $50,000. He's very resilient, he's working 80 hours a week. So yeah, in his case, we really see all the stereotypical personality traits of entrepreneurs. However, studies have analyzed thousands of entrepreneurs everywhere. So not only the United States, but literally globally. And what we learn from these studies is that actually not all entrepreneurs have these personality traits. So it's not that all the entrepreneurs worldwide in the history of entrepreneurship have the same personality traits. So even though you're shy, it doesn't mean that you're not going to become a good entrepreneur. And so this was the flaw in these early theories. So then we had a second theory on entrepreneurship. This is the so-called entrepreneurship impact theory. So these theories, instead of looking at personality traits of entrepreneurs, they will look at the impact of new startups. They will look at the positive consequences of new startups. For example, new startups, statistically, they will create new jobs. That's why governments are now attracting startups from everywhere, because they want to create new jobs. New startups coming in, new tech jobs, engineering jobs, computer programming jobs, all of these will be a consequence of more startups. Obviously, startup means also that there will be more self-employment opportunities. If startups are scale up means startups that are growing very rapidly and they are scaling across borders. So in that case, we also have a very substantial impact on the economic growth of a country. And then there are many other positive results of entrepreneurship. Technology development, more innovation, achievement of sustainable development goals, and so on. However, this does not help us to understand how we teach entrepreneurship. This does not help us to learn how to become an entrepreneur. So this is only telling us why we should promote entrepreneurship, why we should enact policies from government level to regional level to attract and promote entrepreneurship. These theories telling why universities should act as catalysts for entrepreneurship. But still, it does not tell us how we can nurture entrepreneurship. So we can move to a third academic theory on entrepreneurship. And this is the theory of entrepreneurship process. And this is generally what is taught in most of business schools. So it will be to teach entrepreneurship as it is a process. So from A to Z of entrepreneurship, like step-by-step process. And generally this process will start with idea generation and find an opportunity in the market, and then to find a product market fit. And when you do this, then you can move on to the next milestone, which is to set up a company and then to grow the business, and then finally to hopefully exit your successful venture. It can be done through an initial public offering on the market, or some joint ventures, or a takeover by a bigger competitor, and so on. So again, this is true. This is generally the usual process of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial finance. So we can use these milestones to check whether a company is progressing according to the planned milestones. However, again, we don't know how to teach entrepreneurship, and we don't know how to nurture the entrepreneurship mindset. Or we can say this in other words: if we give this list of steps to people, if we give this list of steps to students, and we tell them, okay, this is the checklist, this is all the things that you need to do to become an entrepreneur. So it's exactly like a shopping list that your mom or your wife may give you, and when you go to the supermarket and you buy everything. So okay, if we give this checklist to become an entrepreneur to students, to adults, to everyone, is this enough? Will they actually become entrepreneurs just by following the checklist? And the answer is no, they will not. Even though they have all this plan nicely laid out on paper, even if they know everything that must be done to start up a new business, but still people will not become entrepreneurs. So this leads us to the final theory, which is the theory of entrepreneur behavior and thinking. And this theory has been championed by many authors in academia. So here I would like to share with you one very useful model, which is McMullen and Shepherd model. And this is a good way to fully grasp how entrepreneurial thinking works. So according to this paradigm, there will be two different stages. So the first stage is to realize that there is an opportunity in the market. In the second stage is to identify yourself, which means your own intellectual abilities, your experiences, your own resources with that opportunity. And if you as an individual are keen on acting on and pursuing that opportunity, so this is entrepreneurial thinking. So let me share with you the McMullen and Shepherd framework, a model of entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurial action. So in this first stage, opportunity identification, so here we have the knowledge, the prior knowledge of the entrepreneur and the motivation of the entrepreneur. So what is the strategy to exploit that opportunity? But still at this stage, we are looking at the opportunity from a third-person, third-party perspective. So we're not really looking at this opportunity through our own lenses. But when we put ourselves in this conceptual model, so at that point we move forward to the evaluation stage, which is the second step, the second stage of this conceptual model of entrepreneurial action. So this is when we start looking at this opportunity from our own lenses. And so from a knowledge perspective, we will do a feasibility assessment. So we are going to check if we are the one able to solve that pain point in the market. And at the same time, from a motivation perspective, we are going to conduct a desirability assessment, which means that we check if we want to do that, if we really want to pursue that opportunity. And if we answer to these two evaluation assessments, so the feasibility assessment is positive, and also if the answer to the desirability assessment is positive again, so we know that this is feasible and this is what we want to do, so then we move to the final step, which is to start taking actions as entrepreneurs. And this is our first person opportunity. In the next section, I'm going to dig deeper into the mindset and behavior of entrepreneurs. I'm also going to give you some more illustration of the type of thinking and decision making that entrepreneurs generally adopt. Stay tuned. See you next time. Thank you.